The mainstream media's coverage of global warming has been a topic of significant debate in recent years, with some arguing that it is being used as a tool to oppress Christians. While this may seem like a far-fetched claim, a closer examination of the media's narrative and tactics reveals a more complex and sinister reality. The media's relentless drumbeat of doom and gloom, coupled with its penchant for marginalizing and demonizing those who dare to question the prevailing narrative, has created a culture of fear and intimidation that disproportionately affects Christians. One of the primary ways in which the media uses global warming to oppress Christians is by perpetuating a narrative that casts skeptics as science-denying, anti-intellectual extremists. This narrative is often reinforced by selectively presenting data and studies that support the idea of catastrophic, human-caused global warming, while ignoring or dampening conflicting evidence. By creating this false dichotomy, the media is able to portray Christians who question the prevailing narrative as being opposed to science and reason, rather than simply seeking a more nuanced and balanced understanding of the issue. Furthermore, the media's coverage of global warming often has a distinctly secular and progressive turn, which can be alienating and hostile to Christians. The emphasis on human-caused climate change as the primary driver of environmental degradation implies that human sin and greed are the root causes of the problem, rather than acknowledging the possibility of natural factors or a more complex interplay of causes. This narrative can be seen as a form of secular evangelism, where the media is proselytizing a particular worldview that is inimical to traditional Christian values. The media's use of emotive and alarmist language to describe the alleged consequences of climate change is another way in which it seeks to oppress Christians. By conjuring up images of apocalyptic devastation and catastrophe, the media creates a sense of existential dread that can be deeply unsettling and even traumatizing for some individuals. This can be particularly damaging for Christians, who are often taught to trust in God's sovereignty and providence rather than succumbing to fear and anxiety. By exploiting these emotions, the media is able to create a sense of moral urgency that can be used to bludgeon Christians into conforming to the prevailing narrative. In addition, the media's tendency to promote and celebrate environmental activism as a form of quasi-spiritual expression can be seen as a form of subtle oppression. By elevating the pursuit of environmental sustainability to a sacred cow, the media creates a cultural narrative that implies that Christians who do not prioritize this issue are somehow less spiritual or less compassionate. This can lead to a form of social ostracism, where Christians are marginalized and excluded from the public square for failing to conform to the prevailing environmental orthodoxy. The media's silence on the topic of climate change skepticism within the Christian community is also noteworthy. While there are many Christian leaders and organizations that are actively engaged in promoting a more nuanced and balanced understanding of the issue, these voices are often ignored or dismissed by the media. Instead, the media tends to focus on the most extreme and alarmist voices within the Christian community, which can create a distorted and misleading impression of the diversity of Christian perspectives on the issue. In conclusion, the mainstream media's coverage of global warming is often used as a tool to oppress Christians by perpetuating a narrative that casts skeptics as science-denying extremists, promoting a secular and progressive worldview, exploiting emotions for alarmist language, and marginalizing Christians who fail to conform to the prevailing environmental orthodoxy. By recognizing these tactics and seeking to promote a more balanced and nuanced understanding of the issue, Christians can begin to push back against the media's oppressive narrative and reclaim their rightful place in the public square. Ultimately, this will require a commitment to critical thinking, intellectual honesty, and a willingness to challenge the dominant cultural narrative, even when it is uncomfortable or unpopular.